Well, here we go. Welcome to the Profit Toolbelt Podcast. This show is just for construction and contracting business owners who are interested in the business of the contracting business. If you want to work smarter, not just harder, well, you're in the right place. My name's Dominic Rubino. Today's guest is going to be Ryan Englin. We're going to be talking about how to hire better people faster. And here's why this episode is important, because we're going to be talking about how to make some small changes to have a big impact in your company. Think about it like this. Think about this whole episode like this. This show is all about thinking the big thinks, to steal a line straight from Dr. Seuss. As it stands today, you're the king of working hard, but you've tuned into this show because you want to figure out how other people are working smart, right? Makes sense. So listen, I'll bet you have a part of town you live in where there's really, really old houses. You know, the kind of houses where each window is made up of 10, maybe 12 individual panes of glass. Let's say 4 panes high and 3 panes wide. As a whole, it makes for a beautiful window. What I'm going to do today with our guest, with Ryan, is narrow your focus and help you look through one single pane of glass. And that pane of glass is people in your business. And maybe right next to it is strategy. And maybe right next to that is sales. But you see, if you spend too much time looking at all the panes of glass, it gets confusing. We're going to focus today on one pane of glass, people. I want to show you the secrets for running your construction company like a business person, not a tradesperson who's really good at multitasking. Nothing wrong with that, of course. It's just that you found the show because you're ready for the next level, right? So what's this podcast all about in general? Well, I show contractors how to get back in control of their construction business, even if they don't know where to start. See, the truth is you don't need a lot of extra time or a business degree to build a profitable and solid construction business. You just need simple systems that give you quiet confidence. Now, for too long, our industry has been keeping secrets, and I'm here to put an end to that. So on this show, I guarantee you're going to learn how to use simple systems in 3 places in your business: in the office, on a job site, and in your shop. Now, more important than that, I also show people the secrets of business success, how to work smarter, not just harder, and have a mindset of growth. Now, speaking of that mindset, I'm not going to tell a joke today. Usually I tell a joke, but I went and found an interesting fact. And the reason I found this fact is because it smacked me in the face. I went into Starbucks in San Diego this weekend, in Carlsbad, actually. My son was invited to a showcase for lacrosse recruiting, right? Pretty cool to go down there and watch him play. Anyways, going to the Starbucks, right by the cash register is a huge sign, and it says, "College tuition, we've got you covered." Right there in a Starbucks in a pretty schwanky part of town. Well, in this interview, Ryan and I talk about putting people first in order to recruit the best. Making yourself different in the market might be the key to finding and keeping the greatest employees. Imagine if you could help your team, or maybe the kids of your employees, get to college. And look, please don't say it's too hard to do or it's impossible. Instead, be an entrepreneur. Join me about thinking the big things and start that same question with, how can I? For those of you who read The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, you're going to recognize that line of thought of the entrepreneur that's different than the manager and different than the technician. The entrepreneur thinks the big thinks and asks the questions, and those questions always start with the phrase, how can I, or what if? How can I help people on my team get themselves or their kids the education they want? Could be trade school, could be anything. I don't know. But find a way and let everybody know about it, and you'll start to get higher and higher quality of candidates. Did you know that Starbucks covers 100% tuition at ASU, Arizona State University? And they have a nice, easy to follow URL on that very massive poster sitting right there where you're picking up your coffee, so you can check it out. So I did. I went to it. Here's what it says. In summary, employees working at least 20 hours a week at a company-owned Starbucks, Evolution Fresh, La Boulange, Seattle's Best Coffee, or a Tivana store may choose from more than 40 undergraduate programs offered through Arizona State University's online program. Starbucks employees admitted to ASU as a junior or senior will earn full tuition reimbursement for each semester of full-time coursework they complete toward any of the 40 bachelor's degrees offered by the school. Freshmen and sophomores will be eligible for a partial tuition scholarship and need-based financial aid for 2 years of full-time study, estimated at $6,500. Workers will have no commitment to remain with the company past graduation. Pretty cool. By the way, that last line, workers will have no commitment to remain with the company past graduation, I don't know if anybody remembers the TV show Northern Exposure, where that guy had got paid by a Sicily, Alaska town, and he had to be a doctor in their town for like 10 years or something to work it off. You don't have to do that here. But think about your company. What would it take for you to be an employer of choice in your market? I mean, if you're already a high-end renovator or builder, or you do high-end kitchen cabinets or high-end flooring or the best roofs, maybe you know how to do copper, or it doesn't matter. But if you want to be the employer of choice, what makes you really stand out? Think about what matters to your employees. Would helping them put their kids through school help? Would maybe training the people who came to you and offering them an education make them want to stick with you longer? What kind of people would you attract? And then think about this. What kind of people would you retain? And then think about this. What impact would it have on your business if you had a bunch of people who actually wanted to show up to work, who had a reason beyond a paycheck? You walk into any Starbucks anywhere, and they're all very chipper, very happy. They help us with our coffee. Sometimes you see people losing their mind on them, but they still work there. Why? And why do they show up to work at a place that starts at 5 or 5:30 in the morning when every other small family-owned bakery can't find anybody to open, so they don't open till 7 o'clock? Why is it? Well, this is one of the reasons. So don't ask me. Don't tell me you can't find a way. Look at what Starbucks is doing and copy it. Find a way to put that in place. And put your bookkeeper through it. Put your estimator through a course. Pay for the course. What's the worst thing that could happen? They get better at their job? Wouldn't we all want that? You're taking this course for me. Every episode you listen to here is like a university on wheels, right? You've got a university on wheels every time you listen to an episode. That's the impact I'm trying to have. Now, if you're wondering how you'd absorb the extra cost or the time for doing that, get in touch with me. Get the 1 hour calculator. That is the exact tool that I would use to show you that if you were my coaching client. You just download it from me for free and do the work yourself at a Starbucks, facing the corner, doing what you need to. It's a full circle here, folks. That's the tool you use to lay out what the scenarios look like. That's it. Anyways, if you're a business owner who's curious to find ways to run your business profitably, have more time off, do the things you love, build a team you can rely on, and grow a company that one day you could sell or pass on to somebody else, or just live off the cash flow, you're in the right place. I'm a business owner, just like you. I'm also a business coach. And the only people I work with are construction and contracting business owners who want to get to the next level in their business, but they find themselves stuck. They have all the intent, all the energy, all the momentum, but they're stuck with something. And I help them get unstuck. Now, I host this podcast because one day I want to be your business coach. There, I said it. There's no secret surprise here. I would be proud to be your business coach, and I look forward to the day that comes to happen. I actually have a team of business coaches that I've personally hand selected, and I have very high standards and expectations for the people that join my team. I'm proud of every single one of them. So as you listen to this podcast, ask yourself if you think me and my team and these systems and tools might be the right tool to help you get to the next level you want to get to. With that being said, let me go into business coach mode right now. I'm going to challenge you because in this episode, you're going to hear something or learn something or realize something. But on that, I want you to take action in the next 24 hours. And then I want you to pay attention to how that improves your business or maybe even your life. Now, I hope you know this podcast is built from scratch to educate, inform, and inspire you. So let me get in your head. I'm going to ask you that inspirational question now. You guys ready? Here we go. Are you happy being a contractor who runs a few crews, or are you ready to be a business person who just happens to run a construction company? Well, by the end of today's episode, you'll know the answer. Let's get to it. Mr. Ryan Englin, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Yeah, I can see a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
It's all uphill from here.
Uphill, downhill. We'll see how the interview goes.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Hey, listen, as long as technology doesn't fail us, the rest is up to you and me.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So, well, listen, having a plan is a big part of what you talk about, because today we're going to be talking about how to hiring people, having a plan for hiring people. And it's not just hire meat as it goes by in the conveyor belt, is it?
No.
No,
fog the mirror test isn't working for anybody.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I think we all learn after a while that it doesn't work. Unfortunately, when the people that we hired that way stay with us, that's the worst. You know, if they never leave again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, let me do this though for people that haven't heard of you or don't know you
Yeah.
and have no context to what the heck we're talking about. I'm going to ask you a question. Ryan Englin, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all these forward facing trades contractors all over the world?
But, a question often asked is why blue collar? Like there are so many easier groups to get in front of
But
than
they're not
blue
as
collar.
straightforward. They're not as
Oh,
nice,
oh, I love that we don't beat around the bush here. We get right
right?
to it.
Yeah.
I love that. Like,
Blue collar tradespeople, they
yeah,
call me on BS right away, and I get to call them on BS right away. It's not like
yeah,
this all fancy, like, oh, I'm talking to a chiropractor. I don't want to offend them.
yeah, exactly. We talk around in circles until somebody goes, "Hey, is this what you meant to say?" Yeah, we don't do that here. So, I grew up in the trades. My dad was an owner operator, and I got to go to work with him after school on the weekends. And I was like, I'm hanging out with dad. I get to see what my dad does for a living. And he'd
Yeah.
always put me to work, always put me to work. And it was, as I grew up, I realized that he put me to work because I did what I was told. Like, I wasn't going to get my dad any lip. And I was free. So
What do you mean?
it was
Oh, you're free, like as in free labor.
free labor. Yeah. He wasn't paying me. When I was 9 years old and I was helping him on the shop floor, like he wasn't paying me for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And so I did like any good son. And I told my dad, I'm not going into the family business. And so I went the corporate route. And that's when it all hit me. I am not a corporate guy. Can't do it.
Yeah.
So I
How many
left
years did it
corporate.
take you to figure that out?
11.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
tell people
11,
like,
except corporate is like dog years. So
oh,
it's
70.
77, just so you
Oh,
know.
I tell everybody I was in it for 11 years and I spent 10 wanting to figure out how to get out. And finally got out, started a marketing company to help people like my dad. Because my belief was if
Mm,
my dad had a better stream of new customers coming in, if he could retain his customers, that would help him with revenue. And with more revenue, he could then hire more people. And with
mm,
more people, he could then go get more revenue. And it was just this nice little cycle. That was my belief when I started my own marketing company. And so I worked with a bunch of contractors. I actually ended up doing a lot of home service contractors at the time and
right.
thought, hey, if I can help them with lead gen. A couple of years in, and they're like, the lead gen's great, but I don't need it anymore. So they
They
all
did. So
called.
they said Legion's great, but I don't need it anymore.
I don't need it anymore. I said, what do you mean you don't need it anymore? And they said, well, here's the problem. And a specific story. I had a client. They were an HVAC contractor
Sure.
in Phoenix, and this call came in July. So do the math.
Yeah.
HVAC contractor. Their phone should be ringing off the hooks. Like they should
Yeah.
just.
Their,
Like
I'm sure their company name was Surface of the Sun HVAC,
pretty much.
right?
And they said we don't need leads right now. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And they
No,
said,
they're busy.
here's the problem. No, they were booking 3 weeks out. 3 weeks. So I called and I said, my AC's broken. It's
Mm,
100 degrees in my house. And they're like, yeah, we can get to you. How's 3 weeks from tomorrow sound? Well, that doesn't sound good at
doesn't
all.
sound good at all. No.
So what was happening was they weren't closing these people. And the people that were taking the appointment were calling them later saying, I found someone that could get here sooner. So
Yeah, of course.
they ended up, so I said, okay, let me come down to the office. Let's sit down. Let's talk about this. And they said, look out that window. He goes, see those 4 trucks? I said, yeah. They go, they're all empty. If I had a tech in each one of those trucks, I would
Mm,
absolutely tell you to turn the leads back on because I want them. I need them.
mm. Yeah.
I said, well, let's just solve that problem. And they're like, huh? I'm like, let's get you some techs. So I had a background in recruiting in my corporate years. I said,
Mm,
here was the thing. I ran a marketing company. Recruiting to me is a marketing issue.
yeah. It's
So I can
interesting you
solve
say
this.
that because I've actually heard that from other recruiters before, and business owners uh, maybe haven't heard that enough.
Yeah.
That we're selling something. Actually, I had a business owner on here who's not a recruiter, and he said something clever. He goes, "You got to treat your customers or your employees as a second customer.
Mhm.
You got to recruit for them and manage them and love on them like you would love on a customer."
I would actually argue that they're your number one employee or number
Mm,
one customer, you see, because we spend so much time and energy focusing on our customer experience,
mm,
creating great experience for our customers. Who delivers that?
yeah,
So imagine if instead of you putting all the effort on your customer experience, you put it in your employee experience and
right.
you create a great experience for your employees and you had raving fan employees and your employees were just, oh my gosh, best place of it. Well, guess what they're going to do? They're going to
Yeah,
take amazing care of your customers. But
because
we're
it's
jumping ahead.
we're
So
jump we're jumping
the
ahead.
3 weeks later, they called me and they said, turn leads back on. I hired 4 techs. I got 2 more trucks on order. This is
Sorry,
back when you
you
could
helped
order
them.
trucks.
You used your marketing background and your HR background to help them find more techs.
I did.
And then they called back and said, okay, turn on the leads.
Turn on the leads. And I was like, oh, phew, dodged a bullet. And I was like, wait a minute. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I started calling up my other clients and saying, hey, I can do this recruiting thing. And here's what I found was filling the pipeline with applicants was just a small fraction of the problem that the trades were dealing with. Because they'd get these guys and they'd call me a couple weeks later and I go, so what's going on? They're like, well, 2 of those techs that you helped us hire, they're gone.
Yeah.
And so what I realized very quickly was the problem was not an attraction issue, which is marketing. The problem was a retention issue, which is leadership and system and process and communication. So what I did was I spent the next 4 years developing what I now call the Corporate hiring system, which is the subject of my new book, Hire Better People Faster.
Yeah. That's how I found you.
And yes, it is.
That's how we tracked you down.
I love it. I want to be found. I do not want to be the world's best kept secret anymore.
No, enough of that, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that we're in a weird place in the economy. And I'm not here to talk about the economy. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's weird in that we just keep getting busier. And you'd think, some things have happened in the world and in the country to make you think the economy might take a slide and things slow down. And even if it does, by the way, it just means that people are going to spend their money different. They're not going to stop spending their money. Instead of new, they're going to go to repair or refurbish or recycle or renew. So there's always going to be some opportunity in the market, but it's a weird place in that it's hard to find people. It's really hard to find good people. And then on top of that, I completely agree with you. Once you've found a good person, it's super easy to mess them up by not onboarding them right, by not giving them a system, by not being clear on expectations, by not bringing them into a team.
We had a client about 4 or 5 years ago, lost a controller. And she'd been with him for, I don't know, 2-3 years. And
financial controller, right?
Financial controller.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Controller. So she did all his finances, books, everything. And she was great. They were a good team. Like they got on each other's nerves because you got visionary entrepreneur and then you've got controller who's like by the book. But she was good for him. But in her exit interview, so I did an exit interview for him. I said, let me call her. Let me find out why she left.
Yeah.
She said 2 words. Thank you.
For asking?
No. He said he never said thank you.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, all I wanted him to do was thank me for the effort that I put in, for the sacrifice I made away from my family for him, to say thank you for protecting him. That's all I wanted was for him to say thank you. And she goes, no less than 50 times that I tell him, it really helps me when you say thank you for this stuff.
Oh, okay.
And in his mind, he's like, why would I thank you
for doing your job? Yeah.
And it's moments like that where I realize this is why it's hard to find good people. This is why it's hard to keep good people, because we have a belief. We do this to ourselves. The industry has done this to ourselves. We have this belief that if someone is going to come work for me, they're the one that should feel honored. They're the one that should feel privileged, that I would take my dollars and pay them in exchange for their time, their expertise. And that's not how it works.
I agree with you. And I'm going to say, and it's a fine line because I need you to do your job.
Yeah.
So let me just be that guy. I paid you to do this job. You did the job. I'm going to thank you, but let's keep doing it and doing it better and getting better. I think to me, it's more about creating the right kind of environment, an environment where we are a team, where I recognize that you did good work. I'm going to still give you feedback where it needs to be better. I'm going to say thanks when thanks need to be given. And I'm going to give you feedback, I'll call it, when it needs to be given too. But yeah, no, I don't like treating people like meat on a conveyor belt. There's no enjoyment there, and they're going to leave as soon as they can.
Yeah. How many times have you heard an entrepreneur say, gosh, I just wish they would care about the business as much as me?
All day. I hear that all day. Yeah.
And you know what I say? When's the last time you cared about your employee as much as your business? Because that's all they want, is for you to care about them as much as you care about your business. And if you were to do that, they would care about your business as much as you do.
You know, I was fortunate many years ago to work with an entrepreneur named Brian Scudamore, who's started 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Okay.
You know, if you heard of that.
Heard of that
franchise.
one,
yeah. Most people have heard of it, but if you haven't, that's okay. It's the trucks that come and clean out your garage and take it to the dump for you, right?
Sure.
But then he spun off Wow One Day Paint, Shack Shine, and and You Move Me. And so you realized that what he was really good at creating was culture around home services trades. And I worked with him years and years and years ago. But one of the things Brian said is you should try to build your company so it's just a little bit underneath a cult.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a religion, not a cult, but close.
Just underneath.
Because that culture is what holds it together.
You know what's funny though? We have so many people that have written books, Tribes being one of them, about doing that with your customers. We talk about the importance. Apple, great example, right? Apple just beneath a cult, right? They're loyal. They would never question it. You can screw up something as much as Apple Maps and screw up phones that bend and explode and all that, and you still have your loyal people because they've learned how to create this. We spend so much energy doing it with our customers. We forget to do it with the people who actually help us execute on that for our customers.
Right.
And then we end up with this revolving door. And then we wonder, gosh, why aren't our customers more happy? Why don't we have 5-star reviews? We only have a bunch of 4-star reviews.
Yeah.
Why is it that customers don't come back to us?
You know, I see that in a couple of places. One of them, a lot of people haven't had this chance, but Lululemon, which is a fabulous clothing brand. But when you walk into the Lululemon offices, which is just walking into another world altogether, they are bought in like you wouldn't believe. And then the other place is Starbucks. I mean, if you see somebody behind the counter who's in a bad mood at Starbucks, you really have found an anomaly. So what is it about Starbucks that can staff a place that opens at 5:30, 6, 7 a.m. in the morning when the bakery next door can't? And everybody in there is happy. They're following a system. They get us to speak their language. It's right. We know how to order a coffee at Starbucks because they taught us the words to use to order a coffee. They taught us their manufacturing process, right? But you think about the amount of effort that has to go into building a culture there that's surrounded by all the things we care about, proper systems, SOPs, onboarding, manufacturing process, all of those things we care about as tradespeople. You can see them all at Starbucks if you just go there and have a coffee and watch for 10 minutes.
And you know, it's interesting that you bring up Starbucks because Starbucks is really no different than service, right? You know, if I'm a HVAC tech, odds are the homeowner didn't call me and say, hey, everything is awesome. I want more awesome in my life, right? No. Odds are they called you and there's a problem and they're upset and they're frustrated and they're gonna let you do it. You know what? I've seen a lot of people before their first cup of coffee. I do not want to be around those people.
Oh, right.
Starbucks has able to figure out, you know what? These people smile on their face. They're happy to greet you. They follow through. And you know what? Starbucks isn't perfect. I can't tell you how many times they've messed up my coffee.
Yeah.
But you know what? I go back and they fix it. Just like we do in the trades. We go back and we fix it.
Yeah.
But how often do we go back? I don't want to call back. Like, just go back and fix it. And I think that's a big issue with the trades is that we've forgotten the fact that we provide labor in exchange and skill in exchange for dollars. And that skill and that labor is tied to a human being who's imperfect, who has hopes, goals, and dreams that you may or may not be helping them achieve, who has drama at home, like who is carrying a load outside of the load you put on them.
Right.
If we forget those things, which many people in the trades have done, then we're going to struggle to attract good people. Because we have taught, and this is not just the trades, this is employers in general. We have taught an entire generation of workers that we don't care about them as employers. I mean,
how did we do that?
I mean, think about the pandemic. We had essential and non-essential employees. I mean, what? I wouldn't even call that a shot across the bow. That's a slap in the face. You're non-essential.
That was a government thing though, right? The government said, oh, this is not and by the way, construction kept being essential.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, I know how many home service contractors do you know that had a 2021, 2022 just stellar years and they're like, we're on top of the world.
Yeah.
And then 2023 hit and they're like, oh, we just rode the wave. But you're right. But you know what? We talk about ghosting a lot. Talk a little bit about ghosting.
Oh, you mean employees who ghost, just don't come back, don't show up?
Yeah. Don't show up for the interview. Don't call you back. No show, no calls.
Frustrating. Yeah.
Right.
It's a waste of time.
We're mad. Well, you know, ghosting's nothing new. The term came around about 15 years ago in the dating world. You know what, though? 2/3 of job seekers will never hear back from an employer when they apply for a job. So who started with the idea that it's okay to ghost people? See, we don't want to take ownership of it, but we started it. This was not something that the job seeker started. This was something we started when we said, you know what? I just need to move on. I don't want to hire this person. Why did they apply? Move on. Or, right. You know what? I've got someone I like. I'm not going to bother telling the rest of the people because I got to move on. I'm busy. Or, you know what? My attorney said, don't say no because it might cause other issues for me. So move on. And so we have taught an entire generation of workers that we don't care about their needs. We only care about our own.
So how do I, let's say I do home renos. How do I have to hire a lead carpenter or maybe an apprentice. You know, I'm looking for somebody that traditionally might even walk up to the job site or approach me at Home Depot. So I'm not doing this formal interview process where, you know, a controller, where you're going to put an ad on Indeed.
My question is why not? But that's a whole nother topic. So.
Sorry, why not what?
Why aren't you doing a formal interview process like you would with a controller?
Oh, I would hope you do. I'm just saying, you know, a carpenter is probably not going to come to me through Indeed. I have to find them in other ways.
Only 3 to 5% of the people you hire are going to come through Indeed. That's it.
It's very low, and yet it's
referrals, all that other stuff. Yeah.
So this is one thing I want to put. I want to do a shot across the bow for everybody out there. If you're just posting your job on Indeed, you're not hitting most of our guys. Most of our
you're wasting money.
Sorry, I say guys.
You're wasting money. You're wasting time.
Yeah, they're not looking there. The best you could hope for is that their spouse is on Indeed and is going to pass that on, but you're just relying on campfire whispers to do that. That's not going to work. We have to, and maybe we should talk about like how to actually get the recruit in front of you. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that have to happen as well. Like I need to have an onboarding SOP, whether they walk up to me at Home Depot or whether they come through a referral or whether they come through a job portal. But
well, here's a couple of things to think about. We've heard it before. People don't leave jobs. They leave managers.
Yeah.
They leave people. They leave bosses. If we believe that, which every time I've ever surveyed leaders in a room, they all agree with that. Yeah, people leave people. There's a couple of things to think about. Number one, the next person that walks off a job site and leaves you didn't quit their job. They left you. So if you're struggling with retention, it's time to look inward, look at the mirror and say, wait a minute, why are people leaving me?
Yeah.
They're not leaving for $1 more an hour. They're not leaving for $2 more an hour. They're not leaving for benefits. They're leaving you as their leader. If we also believe that to be true, that means anybody that's looking for a job that walks on my job site, knocks on my door, hits me up at the gas station because they see my truck.
Right.
They're looking to leave a leader. So put yourself in their shoes for a second. If you're looking to leave a leader, what are you looking for?
Another leader.
You're not looking for more money. You're not looking for better benefits. You're not looking for the same job. You're looking for another leader. Yet none of our job ads talk about our leadership. None of our websites talk about our leadership. None of our career pages talk about our leadership. None of our onboarding programs talk about our leadership. I promise you, everybody listening right now, I've got an onboarding program. I show them how to pack the truck. I show them how to use our software. I show them how to, that's not what we're talking about here. What you need to talk to them about is how do you assimilate them into your leadership style, into your company culture.
Into your culture and what we stand for, our value.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because when I talk about values here, I know that people roll their eyes. They're driving down the road. They're like, oh, there goes Rubino talking about values again.
Yeah.
And I continue to do it. The reason is the culture of my company is the glue that holds all of it together. Everything. Because I'm not going to be there to answer every question for all of my people all the time. They're going to have to piece together some of their own answers and go, I think Dom's going to say, do what's right for the customer. I'm going to do this. And I'll bet you Dom's going to be okay with it, even if he wants me to change it later.
I just had that conversation with leadership team this morning. Inaction is often going to get you in trouble more than the wrong action, as long as you're being smart about it. You can't be dumb about it. But I do this. So we talk about values, we talk about vision, we talk about purpose in the work that we do, but I change it. I want people to think about this different. Your values is defining how you behave as a contributing member of the team. So if your values are not verbs, I want you to reassess your values.
So let's jump into that for just a quick sec. Your values have to be action words.
They have to be action words.
I do this. We care about that. We move heavy furniture with pride.
Well, so integrity. Show me integrity. Can't. It's not a verb. Teamwork. Show me teamwork. You can't. Now, you could say something like employees first. Put employees first. You could put customers first. You could say something like people over profits. Like these are things that you can start defining as behaviors. Now, there's nuances, there's intricacies in the whole thing, but they should be behaviors. Stop with the integrity, trustworthy, teamwork. If I have to go to my customer and say, honesty is one of our values, we behave honestly. What are we selling our customer? And so your values are the way in which you behave. And how many leaders, entrepreneurs do you know, contractors that say, oh, I really don't care how people behave? No. They'll line up a list of all the behaviors that are acceptable.
And
those
not
are your
acceptable.
values. Those are your values, guys. So you might be tired of the word core values or values, but really what we're talking about here is what's acceptable behavior.
I would add to that because there's people listening going, well, we have our core values. They're on the wall of the office.
Yeah.
Look, I don't care if you went and had another contractor carve them in granite in a massive boulder out front of your shop. It doesn't matter. Those words don't matter unless you can go to another company that doesn't have their values written anywhere and they're strong in their values.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I always do this. I go to leadership teams and I say, all right, pop quiz, name all of your core values.
Yeah.
It's never happened. And you know what? If you're the person that actually put them up on the wall and you don't know them, no one else in your team knows them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd have to agree with you on that. Now it's one of the things that I like to do, and we're going to move off values in a second and go to more of the how-tos, but one of the things that I always put as a test when we're doing a strategic plan with a company, big part of what I do is help people put a plan in place so that we have something to work towards. You can't it's not airware. You can't just always be changing your plan. You have to have a plan, a written plan we all agree on, and that's going to be our boss. We're going to go look at that, right? But one of the things with values that I like is if it's written there as a value, you've got to be able to tell me a story about how that's true in your company, and it can't be you as the hero of the story. Right. So one of the values that I had at a company I was working with was punctuality. We value being on time. I can't remember how they worded it, but the story that they had from that was incredible. A guy is driving to the shop. This is a woodworking shop. The guy is driving to the shop, and up ahead, he sees somebody running down the road. And they're out kind of a rural area. And he's like, what the heck's going on here? Somebody's running down the road. As he pulls up, it's a new kid they just hired, and his vehicle had broken down. He didn't want to be late. And so he just got out of his truck and started running to get to work on time. That's such a great story to make alive in your company that says, here's the new guy. Cared so much about missing work that he got out and just started running to get to work. Of course, this guy picked him up.
Yeah.
Right. But the story is he could see up ahead, there's some kid running down a farm road. It's like, what's going on?
Wow.
That we don't see that. Right. Yeah. And so now you don't have to have a value. The value says we are punctual. The value says, remember what Jimmy did when he was going to be late? He just started running. That's what we value here. And that has just so much more stickiness to people.
Yeah. So I love that. And in fact, one of the things that we talk about is once you have what we call your core vision defined, then actually turn it into a story. Because stories.
There you go. And you and I have never talked about this before, by the way.
We have not.
But we're coming to the same conclusion after years of doing this.
We call it the core story because here's the thing. If you didn't have that story, you would have been like punctuality. That's different. But you knew the story behind it, which made it really easy for you to remember it. Now
Yeah.
you're telling it how many years later, and you get it. And you don't even work there.
Yeah.
So imagine how powerful story is when someone works there and they tell it. So let's move into a how-to. So here's the thing. We talked about employee referrals. We talked about employee referrals. Everybody agrees. Statistics show, the data shows employee referrals are by far the best source of high quality employees.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Most employees don't refer. 6% of employees will refer for money or recognition.
6% will refer for money or okay.
6%. So think about that. We have an employee referral program. Most people have an employee referral program of some kind, whether they're really intentional about it or not. And it's usually tied to money. But only 6% of your people. So if you're a small shop and you've only got 20 people, that means you might have one that on the off chance they know somebody is going to refer one time.
Right.
And you're never going to get it again. And people tell me all the time, I wish I could get more employee referrals. But the problem is we don't take the time to actually build a solid employee referral program. We'll put together, in our customer service department, we'll put together scripts, we'll put together trainings, we'll do role playings, we'll do all of this stuff to help our CSRs close more people. But we do nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, to help our employees refer more people.
So what are some ways to do that? If let's say I'm a normal company, we don't get referrals, even though we've got 5-10 people working for us.
Yeah. So think about this. First off, we're asking craft workers, trades workers to go recruit for us. It's not their forte. It's not their strong suit. So what are they going to do? They're going to look for the opportunity. So when my buddy calls and says, Ryan, I can't have it anymore. I hate my boss. I need a new job. Do you know anybody that's hiring? Oh, heck yeah. My boss is going to give me $1,000 if you come work here. Like, that's how it's going to happen. Because I'm not going to go call my buddy and I'm going to say, hey, Scott, you know how looking for work sucks. And by the way, the studies show looking for work sucks. 3 out of 4 people say it's one of life's most stressful events. So I call my buddy Scott and I say, hey, Scott, I know that Jen's still pissed at me. That weekend, the guy's weekend. No. Oof, I know she's still mad. But I got this wild idea. Let me just share it with you. Let me flip by. I know you're okay at work. Like it's not your favorite. You and your boss don't see eye all the time in it, but I know it's good. Why don't we do this? Like, she's going to love this. How about you quit your job? Okay. Put your family's future in peril, because who knows if the grass is really greener, and come work at my company. And here's the cool part. If you do that and you can convince your wife to do it, my boss gives me $500.
Right.
Like, that's what we're asking them to do. And I know I'm over exaggerating, but that's really what we're asking them to do.
Sure.
Call up your buddy, tell your wife that you're going to quit your job and come work somewhere else.
Right. Okay. So you definitely got my attention, because that is probably what happens. They're not thinking far enough ahead to not,
because we don't equip them. We don't equip them. We don't give them scripts. We don't give them role play. We don't give them anything to incentivize or entice the guy that's taking all the risk.
So how do you
really
do it?
Taking the risk in all of this?
The new guy, or the new applicant. Guy. Yeah.
And we're giving him nothing. Oh, and to make matters worse, I only get my $500
if you stay 6 months.
If I help him stay. Well, wait a minute. So it's not really an employee referral program. It's now an employee retention program. I'm out. I got a job to do. I got faucets I got to go repair, and I got drains I got to unclog. I've got ACs that I got to get running. I don't have time to sit here and worry about whether or not you can do a good job in retaining your employee. So they don't work.
So how do you make it work?
Well, if we know all the reasons they don't work, just flip it around. So we got to equip our people. We got to give them something, whether it's a script, whether we role play, my favorite, give them some videos. How about employee testimonial videos? Don't take my word for it. Send these videos to your wife and let her watch them about how happy the rest of the team is.
Right.
We equip them with the tools to make a good, solid referral. Now we know the next thing we got to deal with is he's got to go tell his wife. So what can we give the person that we're asking to quit their job? What can we give them as a carrot to go to the wife with?
Sure. Well, give you some suggestions on that.
Well, I'll tell you an easy one. In the trades, PTO is not given out very well. We don't get PTO in the trades.
Mm.
Right? You got to work there 5 years. You got to be a foreman. You got to be a service manager. Then you get your PTO. But if you're an electrician, you don't get PTO for 12 months. And
Mm.
even then, you're only going to get a couple of days.
Sure.
But imagine that I got to go to Scott and I said, hey, Scott, you know how you and Jen have been wanting to go visit her parents,
Mm.
but it doesn't make sense financially because not only you have to pay for the trip, but you're going to have to take time
Days
off
work.
and you don't get PTO. Well, here's the deal. My boss has got this sweet program going right now. If you come work here
Mm.
and you stay 60 days, so now we're putting all the onus on him,
Mm-hmm.
and you stay 6 days, he's going to give you 5 days PTO. Use it however you want. What's 5 days PTO cost you? $1,000, $1,500?
Mm.
We are writing checks to Indeed for thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
to get
I know. And by the
technicians.
way, wasting that money.
And it's just wasting
know
it.
it's
And we're
wasting
writing
the
these
money.
checks, thousands of dollars to Indeed. Or I can give it to my new employee, who, by the way, imagine how he's going to feel when his wife's like, hey, you're working a little too much overtime. And he gets to go, yeah, but remember the PTO they gave us?
You know, a bunch of guys are just going to use that to go duck hunting.
I don't care how they use it.
You know what? It is a great point, though. So, and let me ask then, does the referrer get some PTO? Like you refer somebody to
Yeah, I
us?
like to give them PTO as well. Yeah. But see, here's the thing about the employee referral incentive. So for the referrer, the current employee, give them something that aligns with the behaviors that you want to see.
That's actually a really good point, because you do have to align behaviors. It's the same with
How many
salespeople. It's the same with
times
anything.
do you have somebody say, we value family, yet they work their team like dogs and never let them see their family on nights and weekends because of all the OT, because they're short staffed.
Mm.
Right. Well, if you want to show me and align the incentive to your values, how about I refer somebody, you pay for a night Great Wolf Lodge for me and my kids, my wife.
That place runs on pizza and ice cream.
But my point is,
you're right.
So maybe
you're right.
it's $800 and they get to buy everything for a night. I was just going to write the guy $1,000 check for the referral. But now I'm aligning it to my value system and to their value system. And I promise you that $1,000 is going to be forgotten next week. But that 24 hours of creating a memory for my family
at Great Wolf Lodge. Yeah.
We're going to talk about it for years.
You know, that's a really important point you brought up, because it's the, if I use business coach language, perceived value versus actual value. There's a higher perceived value. Like I actually feel more value if you bought me a night, me and my family, my 2 kids, 3 kids at Great Wolf Lodge. It feels like more value, just like you said, than $1,000 check.
Yeah.
You know, and it might cost me $600 or $800. It just feels like more value.
And here's
and it feels like I care, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're aligning it to your value system, which is even better. But here's the pushback I always get. Oh, this sounds like a lot of work. I always get that pushback. Sounds like a lot of work.
Let me answer for you.
Yeah.
How much work are you doing right now to find a new employee? It's ridiculous. And how much money are you losing every day by not having an employee or not being able to retain employees?
Or
that's ridiculous.
What's the risk of the people that you're working to the bones right now because you're short staffed and they're going to leave soon? What's that going to cost you?
Yeah. There's something, you know, I'm going to assume that you haven't listened to my show. Let's just assume.
Yeah.
Maybe you haven't had a chance yet. But there's something that we talk about here called revenue responsibility per hour. And so revenue responsibility per hour is a great way for us to understand the value we need to bring our company as the owner. So really quick math, if you work 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, that's 250 days a year that you're working in the company. And if you're $1 million company, and I'm just doing easy math, that means that if I take $1 million and I divide that by 250, you know, like it's pretty easy to come out to my revenue responsibility per hour as the owner is $500. That's what I'm responsible for bringing in. It doesn't mean that I bill myself out if I'm changing the thermocouple at $500 a night. That's not what that means. That means that as the leader, going back to what you opened with, as the leader, I make sure that I've got 5 people working at $100 an hour productivity back into the company, however that math works out. So for every day that I don't have somebody in the company helping me grow the business, That's 8 times $500 per hour. So if somebody comes to you and says, oh, it costs too much. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It costs, it's lost opportunity cost. You are strangling your own company by just saying, well, I put an ad on Indeed. We'll see what happens. No, go find a solution. I know you've got a book about this, right? So there's probably some checklists or things like that in the book, right?
There's a lot in the book, and there's a lot of downloads available for you as well, too. We have a lot of tools and templates. So for us, what I learned is that I have to teach people how to do this, because here's the problem. Most of the industry has resorted to staffing agencies and recruiters to help them solve the problem. And the problem is not external. The problem is internal. We would never ask somebody to go on a first date for us and then tell us how the date went and then decide whether or not we were going to actually date that person.
I have to add to what you said, but it's going to sound like a disagreement. I work with a lot of companies that have a great culture and they still don't get enough recruits coming through the door. They rely on, I was driving by and I saw a sign. So they're not proactive. So I agree with you. I'm just saying you can actually take it another level, because a lot of the companies I've worked with, like, clients stay with me for 2, 3, 4 years. My longest client is 11 years right now with me.
Good for you.
So they're actively growing their business and trying to find ways to get better, and yet still relying on people walking through the door.
Well, and that's the problem. This is a general statement about entrepreneurs. We are really good at fighting until we win. But once we win, we never stop to celebrate. We go find the next battle to fight. And that's what entrepreneurs do. And we do it. And we value it in our team when they do the same thing. So we end up surrounding ourselves with people that are going to fight the battles, winning, and then moving on. And here's the thing. If you are wanting to attract someone from someone else, you've got to show them how you win. And if you can't communicate how you as a team win, they're going to look at you just as the same as the company they're at now. And if we aren't intentional about getting that message, getting that marketing material out into the public, we're going to rely on drive-bys all the time.
Yeah. It's, I'm looking at my own operations, but I'm also thinking which needs, more on this. None of us are perfect, and I could see where I could be doing more. But I also think back to the guys that are doing like barbecues, just hot dogs as a way to win, just a way to celebrate and have a soda. I'm going to say have a soda on a Friday. Just one soda per person, please.
Or something simple like say thank you when someone wins.
Yeah. There's so much here. I mean, I'm glad you wrote a book. We should probably talk about the book. So Ryan, if somebody wants to find you or find out about this book, how do we find you in this big wide world?
Well, the name of the book is Hire Better People Faster. And
Hire Better People Faster. I can't see how anybody would want to get that book. Hire Better People Faster.
I know.
That doesn't solve any problems.
No, not at all. And here's the thing. I told you I had to teach people how to do this. So I have this mindset. I've got to teach people to fish. I've got to teach people how to do this stuff. And so much of it is really, it's incredible how not common sense is, right? Because people read this stuff and they go, well, duh. I'm like, then why aren't we doing it? Like, there's nothing in here. It's not like I found some secret magic pill and it said, okay, here, you go do this. And no one else knows about it, but nobody's doing this because it's easier not to do this than it is to do it. So it's real simple. There's 7 components in our model. There's 7 chapters in the book on each component. And we just dig in and we say, here are the main tools for each one. Here's how you implement them. Here's how you use them. Here's how you get value out of them. But I got an offer for your listeners. If they want a free copy of the book, they can go to corematters.com/free book. Fill out the form. I got a small shipping and handling fee, and then I will mail them a copy personally.
Oh, so it's the book is free. Just pay for shipping.
Free book, pay for shipping.
There you go. And can you repeat the domain name, the URL?
Yeah, corematters.com/free book.
So it's about abs, like working on my core?
No, it's about core, the things that are most important in your business, the things that are central, foundational to your business.
Yeah. And now you mentioned there's downloads in there. And I assume your book has checklists, because you sound like a very logically ordered guy. You have an order of operations and everything we've talked about here. So
checklists, templates, worksheets, all of that. So Once you've picked up the book, you'll get immediate access. Once you've ordered your copy, it'll take you right to them. You can download them all.
Yeah, that's great. Now, you also have a podcast.
I do.
What is this magical podcast called?
Yeah. So podcast is Titans of the Trades.
Mm.
And it's stories and strategies from industry powerhouses. People that are actually out there making it happen, who've been there and done that, who've climbed to the mountaintop and have a story to share. And so I'm so passionate about stories. It's what people remember, like we already talked about.
Yeah.
It's what drives and motivates people because they want to be the hero in their own story. And so I'll be bringing on guests every single week to talk about the challenges that they overcame. And it's all focused on the trades. So these are my people. I'm so excited about it.
I've got some guests for you. A lot of my clients would be.
I love it.
It's funny that a lot of people don't think they have a great story to tell on a podcast. And I find it completely the opposite. I want to hear the story of a guy you never heard of from Duluth.
Yeah.
That guy's got a great story.
And there's something to learn in every story. It might not be well rehearsed or something that's a made for TV story, but the lessons that we can get out of stories are so powerful. Yeah. And I love having those conversations. I love hearing what people have done because, we all think that everybody's an overnight success.
Yeah. And everybody has it easier than us.
Yeah.
And they don't.
No, they don't.
Just as hard.
And some of my favorite stories are stories out of the Bible. And, you get to the end and you're like, oh, Joseph, he had it made. Do you know what Joseph had to go through to get there? I just love that story. And so we're going to tell those stories, not the Bible stories, but the Titans of the Trade stories. And we're going to be sharing it with our listeners and have a lot of great leadership lessons in there.
Excellent. This has been great. I loved having you here, especially because we do need to, a lot of times the books or the experts like yourself that will come and talk about how to recruit and hire people, they talk about it for the office. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
When I say the floor, the production floor, manufacturing, the shop, the field, the framing crew that's out there in the wind and snow. Or if you're like me, the rain, where I was holding up an outside wall and the water went in my left sleeve and out my right boot. But a lot of us are hiring that guy. And we are getting walk-ups. We are getting people leaving us for reasons we can't understand. We're not getting, by the way, exit interviews, nor have we ever thought about doing them. I love doing exit interviews. I love doing them. And as you know, you don't get an answer from everybody. A lot of times you're like, I'm out of there. I'm not answering any of your questions. But when you do ask, 1 out of 10 is going to answer. And there's so much to be learned there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's my focus. My dad, going back to his story, his challenge was never finding great leaders or finding people to run the office. It was finding people to be out in the shop and make it happen. Yeah. And so many times, especially construction companies, it's 9 to 1. You've got a guy in the field for every one person in the office, sometimes even more. Yeah. That's where the problem needs to be solved, is at that front line in the field. And so everything that we've done, all of our processes, all of our tools, they've all been field tested in the field, because that's who we focus on. That's where our efforts are.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Hey, give us the URL one more time.
corematters.com/freebook.
Excellent. Ryan, thanks for being on the show. Hopefully I get to be on your show one day. We'll see if I make the cut.
All right.
To be determined. Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, what did you learn from Mr. Ryan Englin about recruiting, about people? What can you put in place? Heck, what did you disagree with? It's fine to disagree. You don't have to put everything in place, but I will challenge you that if you went through that entire episode and said, none of that was any good, then the problem isn't Ryan. The problem's not me. The problem, my friend, is you. You're just not opening your mind to the possibilities, the opportunities that are in front of you. Find something in there to put in place. Find something in there to put in place and then do that this week. Hey, listen, we're about to simplify and solve a common problem that comes up for business owners. But I want to read you something nice that came in. This came in from a really nice couple. T and D are their initials. I don't like to share actual names, although you can read this review on online. Here's what came in and said: why did we wait so long? I don't know why it took us so long to engage 10X BLT. For those of you that don't know, you might listen to me on this podcast or the other podcast, but the coaching part of my company is called 10X Built. 10X Built. It's a good business coaching name, right? 10 times your building company. That's what we do. Anyways, I don't know why it took us so long to engage 10X Built. We've had our small business for a year and a half. We've been struggling to figure it all out. After listening to the podcast, we decided to give them a call. We quickly realized this was exactly what we needed to take our business to the next level and to help us get more control over our own time. Lee and Dom have been great to work with. So Lee is a coach on my team. You guys have heard me talk about the coaches on my team. Lee is fantastic. You might have actually heard him in a previous episode here last December. In a very short time, we've gained tools and insight into how to become leaders and not just employees in our own shop. This is very well written. We're just getting started and have a lot of work to do, but Lee has so much experience and has been very thoughtful about helping us navigate growing our business. We're now excited about what we're doing, looking forward to our future. Boom. Thank you, T and D, for taking a minute to leave that. I appreciate it. Look, we're going to simplify and solve a common problem that we run into in contracting. And maybe you have this problem. Maybe you're already through it. Maybe you learned some things today that completely blew your mind and opened up the challenge you're having. But one of the problems that we see a lot with business owners is you get to the level you get to just by your own will and strength and conviction, and getting beyond that takes some new knowledge, some new thoughts, some new tools, some new ways of doing things. So let me ask you this. Do you have a problem in that you don't know how to estimate for profits with confidence? Are you in a place where you don't really know your overheads? When was the last time you went and looked at your overheads? Now, for some of you, you're like, oh, knowing my overheads sounds like pulling teeth. Sure. But what if every tooth was made of gold, platinum? Would you pull teeth then? I'm not sure what is overheads. Yes, that is a sentence. That's a proper sentence. Dom, I don't know what is overheads. There are things that are overheads and there's things that are cost of goods. If you don't have a background, like a financial background where you learned basic bookkeeping or accounting, you never became a CPA like me, that's okay. We're out there. We know how to run a business. We know how to do our trade. That's totally cool. But I can show you some shortcuts. One of these shortcuts is called the 1 hour calculator. A guy named Nick and I just did his 1 hour report. And we found out something pretty cool. The first thing you need to know is that before Nick and I started working together, his gross profit was around 19%. Now, some of you are shaking your head and you're like, Rubino, you made another mistake. Nope, you heard it right. It was 19%. Those of you who know understand that to run a company, it costs about 20% of revenue when you're running everything tickety-boo. He wasn't making any money. As a matter of fact, he was losing. He was losing money for every single job he took on. And he got caught in that loop that you may have been in. I've certainly been in it before, where every time you sold a job, you actually got further into trouble. Anyways, here's where this story goes. In the first 3 months of working together, we got his gross profit to 35% on new jobs, which is not bad. It's not great. Some of you are still being very skeptical, like, hey, way to go, Rubino. 35%. We do better than that all day. Good. But you didn't start at 19%. Nick had the foresight and the confidence and the ego to say, hey, listen, I got to where I got. Show me how to get beyond it. So he went from 19% gross profit on jobs to 35% gross profit on jobs. We used the 1 hour calculator to help him build an estimate properly. Use the right profit multipliers, capture his information right. And now he just started completing jobs where he has wait for it, 60% gross profit margin. Same guy, same company, same machinery, same equipment, same, yes, please bring your dogs into the office if that's what you want to do to work in my company. Same guy. How did he change from having a 19% gross profit to a 60% gross profit? He did it because he has the knowledge. Do you think he's ever going to look back? Is he ever going to be the 19% gross profit guy again? No, never. He better not. It took us work to get here. That's what we're talking about here. And that's in something you guys have heard from me many times before. It's the 1 hour calculator. We often call it the go back calculator because it's the same tool, but depending on the problem or the question that me or my coaches have, we apply the tool differently. Now it's much easier to text us and say, go back, but it's the very same tool that is the 1 hour calculator. From 19 to 35 to 60%. Now, I hope you guys know I'm not a big fan of theory. I don't like a lot of or fast talk or smooth talk. I've got no time for it. To be honest, it frustrates me. What you hear me talk about on the show usually sounds really simple, not overcomplicated at all, because it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Usually I find when people are talking fancy language, they either don't know what they're talking about or they're trying to convince me of something down a path I shouldn't be taking. If you can't say it in plain language, I don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. On your side, once you have a few basic tools, you got everything you know to make solid decisions with confidence. In Nick's case, he went from 19% gross profit to 60% gross profit. We've been coaching now for a little, the north side of 3 months. So call it 3.5 months. He completely changed his business. And I should add this. He didn't think he could afford coaching when we started 3 months ago. Imagine where he'd be if he kept going 19% gross profit on a job, 19% gross profit on a job again and again, just further in the hole every time he sold something. We show lots of people how to use tools like this to get back in control of the business. You can ignore the tool, but it doesn't mean the tool doesn't exist. Putting your head in the sand doesn't change the situation, right? Anyways, if you think it's finally your turn to have this at your fingertips, actually have it on your hard drive. That's what I want. When you download this from me, put it on your hard drive. If you want it, shoot me a text. Get the download, look at it. We were talking about Starbucks earlier. Get the download from me. Send me a text message that says go back. When you get it, put it on your hard drive. Don't just leave it sitting in your email. Print it off. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, but it's so powerful. Print it off, go to Starbucks, face the corner, put in your headphones, grab your favorite cup of coffee or whatever frappa you buy there, and just start noodling around with it. The whole what if scenario, what if I hired an estimator? What would that cost? How would I pay for that? What if I hired another project manager? What if I had to finally hire a foreman? What if? You can do all the what if scenarios and you're going to see what that's actually going to cost you as a company. Then when you know your real numbers, you can start to estimate jobs based on that. Once you start to estimate jobs based on that and you're winning them, you now know you can go and make that higher. The world, you've heard me say this before, the world is going to pay for your employees, not you. You being a little bit more clever, a little bit more smart, a little bit more sharp, and getting out there and changing your internal operations, the world will pay for your success. And I'd like to help you show you how. Anyway, shoot me a text. The way to get me is text me at 315-903-7853. And then in the text, just say the word go back. And that way I know what report you want. And then we'll do a few emails back and forth. Or a few texts back and forth so I know where to email it. But simple, right? Doesn't have to be complicated. Doesn't have to be fancy. You can make it work. But if you want to get on the path of growing this business, and we're at the beginning of the year now, why not start now? You probably thought about starting last year or maybe the year before. So that's 3 years you've been waiting. How many of you have been waiting 4 years saying, oh, this is going to be my year? 5 years. This is going to be my year. Stop. Let's get into it. Grab this go back report. It's actually called the 1 hour calculator when you use it for this purpose. Figure out your numbers so you can estimate for profits with confidence and be like Nick, 19% to 35% to 60% gross profit margin. There's so much fat in those deals now. And by the way, he's not overcharging clients. He's charging fairly. I should tell you that nobody's come back and said, you're charging through the nose. We're not going to use you anymore. No, customers haven't said that at all. His conversion rate, his batting average, if you will. So if he goes and talks to 10 customers, how many jobs he's winning hasn't changed. What does that tell you? The customers already knew he was underpriced, but they're not going to tell him and they're not going to tell you either. It's a shame and it has to stop. So let's get it stopped. Anyways, I hope you appreciate today's episode. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us as a guest. You've heard about Starbucks. You heard about Ryan's experiences and how this all works. You've heard about Nick and his experiences and how it all works. Got everything in front of you to take one step forward this week, this 1 week out of 52. So let's go do it. Thanks for checking in, folks. And listen, one day you and I are going to have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine across the table. And I look forward to that. And we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.